Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Penn State Sports Night. I'm Andrew Destin alongside Evan Lasek and Tim Rogers, and we'll be recapping Week 1 of the NFL season. This past week proved to have some very surprising outcomes. Evan, I'll turn to you first. Which game was the most surprising to you?
Thank you, Andrew. First, I got to apologize to the Rams. I was hating on them last week. I said some mean things. To be fair, I still am going to say some mean things. I don't expect that much, but kudos to beating the Cowboys on Sunday night. That was a huge win, not just as an Eagles fan, but thank you really, really heavily for that. So I'll start right now. Tim, the Rams won 20-17 in kind of a crappy showing. Jared Goff played average. Dak Prescott did not play like the $40 million quarterback that he wants to be paid as. Jared Goff, in this case, got the job done. I think Robert Woods played amazing. He's a very underrated receiver coming off a 1,000-yard season. Cooper Kupp came back in a new number. That kind of threw me off for the first 3 quarters, I'm not going to lie. But he still had a quiet game coming back from the ACL tear. Now, Cam Akers, I honestly thought he was going to be the starter, but Malcolm Brown really did step up. Speaking of running back stepping up, Zeke had 127 total yards and 3 touchdowns. He was the workhorse there for the Dallas Cowboys offense. Amari Cooper had 8 catches, but again, Dak did not do enough. If he wants to be paid like a superstar quarterback like that, he needs to get those wins against a tough defense. Aaron Donald's numbers were not very gaudy, but they don't always have to be for a guy at his position. Every single play, he was out there causing problems, and it was just a mess for Dallas. At points, he was just manhandling that Cowboys offensive line and Zeke Elliott. So Aaron Donald's really going to carry this Rams team. I don't expect them to keep going, but my biggest surprise is definitely the Rams beating the Cowboys. It could have been the football team beating the Eagles, but that's still a sore subject. So this is my big one because I think a lot of people had the Cowboys winning this game.
How about you, Tim? Which game was the most surprising in your eyes?
Thank you, Andrew. For me, it was really Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jaguars going in and surprising the Indianapolis Colts, beating them by a score of 27-20. Gardner Minshew with an almost perfect game, only having 1 incompletion the entire game, throwing for 173 yards and 3 total touchdowns. He also ran the ball very efficiently, getting around 47 yards on the ground. Now, to me, a lot of people were sleeping on the Jacksonville Jaguars, thinking that they might be tanking to get Trevor Lawrence as the #1 overall pick, but Gardner Minshew, he really put that to bed there. Minshew Mania was going wild there in the stands. Nice to see some fans in the stadium. Also, too, I was very impressed with the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. A lot of people, with the big question marks, losing Yannick Ngakoue to the Minnesota Vikings, as well as losing Jalen Ramsey to the Rams. But forcing Phillip Rivers to turn the ball over not once but twice, it made a big impact in the game.
Week 1 yielded some impressive performances from familiar faces and some new players. Tim, I'll turn to you first. Who stood out the most to you this week?
To me, it's got to be the former MVP of the league, Lamar Jackson. I know everybody thought, hey, he's going to continue to have a great year, but to me, he really stood out, beating the Browns 38-6, an absolute dominant performance. And Evan, to me, only having 5 incompletions all game, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, 50 rushing yards, he really matured his game, in my opinion. He looks like after a very embarrassing defeat in the playoffs last year to the Titans, he's ready to really rebound this year and really hopefully bring the Ravens back to the Super Bowl, somewhere they haven't been since Joe Flacco was there winning the MVP against the Niners.
Yeah, Lamar definitely has something to prove, and we saw it in this game. You can say what you will about the Browns and the Browns team in general, but Lamar really showed out. So I wouldn't even say it was a surprise or a standout player, because that's just stuff you expect Lamar to do at this point.
In terms of surprise and standout players, was there somebody who compared to Lamar in your eyes, Evan?
In my eyes, nobody can compare to Lamar this year. Reigning MVP, I think, but a standout player that I really want to touch on is Dallas Goedert. The Eagles had no receivers, really. Goedert had 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. That led the Eagles receiver. He was targeted 9 times, which is the most on Philly's roster, ahead of star tight end Zach Ertz, who only had 3 catches, but he still had 7 targets. So if this continues, it's a question of, will Dallas Goedert really reign over Zach Ertz for this entire season, in my opinion? I know they're in contract talks, but if Dallas Goedert continues to perform like he just did this past game, then we may be seeing a new #1 tight end in Philadelphia, in my opinion.
Well, that's the big question mark, is really, can Zach Ertz keep playing to the level that he's played all season or all these past few years? So I think, honestly, for the Eagles having a little bit of a rough game, that's definitely a big bright spot for them.
Tonight's matchups for Monday Night Football have two games, with the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium, as well as the Tennessee Titans playing the Denver Broncos. Evan, I'll start with you first. Who you got in these games?
All right, you got to take the Steelers here. I know the game's going on right now. I'm pretty sure the Steelers are up at halftime, but I'm still going Steelers all the way. 4-1-2, born and raised. Always got to take Pittsburgh over everybody. But Big Ben's returning. He's going to light it up in this offense. It's going to be a little bit slow at first, but with guys like Juju, Vance McDonald, Eric Ebron, James Conner, I think the Steelers' offense is just going to be way too much. Not to mention that superior defense. The Giants' offensive line just cannot handle the likes of Bud Dupree, Cam Hayward, and TJ Watt, in my opinion. So I think Danny Dimes is really going to be running around for his life back there. Hopefully Saquon can step up for that Giants team, but last year their offense didn't impress me, and I think the Steelers are going to win by a score of, we'll say, 35-21.
Well, yeah, for me, I do also have the Steelers winning the game here. But I don't think it's going to be as dominant as you expect. I think Saquon Barkley, if he can find those holes, he has shown, especially in his rookie year, that he can tear up the field. Also, though, TJ Watt, an absolute animal, an all-pro defenseman. So if Daniel Jones is not able to get the ball out, and if he still has those carrying troubles, I see Big Ben and the Steelers winning this one by a score of 27-24.
And how about the nightcap edition? We have the Broncos taking on the Tennessee Titans starting at a late 10:20 p.m. Eastern time. Who do you guys got in this game, Tim?
Well, for me, I think the Tennessee Titans had a great year last year, getting it to the AFC Championship game. But can Ryan Tannehill put up the numbers that he did last year? No. He got paid very much in the offseason, a very big contract. Some definitely questioning if he deserves that money. So for me, I think the Denver Broncos, Drew Lock showed great performances down the stride last year. And I think with the new weapons like Jerry Jeudy and Penn State's own KJ Hamler, I think they're going to be able to tear up this Tennessee defense. And I just think Ryan Tannehill is not going to be able to come in the clutch time. I got the Broncos winning by a big score of 28-10.
All right, I can see where you're coming from there, but the thing you got to remember is the Broncos, this is a young unit, and they're all playing together for the very first time. There was no preseason, so I think the Titans just have more chemistry than they do. But Ryan Tannehill, $110 million, that was a bit of a reach there for somebody who played 10 games last season maybe. So I'm still going with the Titans here. Derrick Henry may not have the success that he had at the end of the last season, but I still think the Titans are going to be the better team in game one. So I'm going Titans, very low score, 17-7.
Not to mention the Denver Broncos also without Von Miller, who has that injury that's got him out for the rest of the year. Well, that will do it for tonight's segment of the NFL Recap. I'm Andrew Destin alongside Tim Rogers and Evan Lasek. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching our latest edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.